All right, welcome back to another episode of the Full Subjects podcast. We might have done a little bit of editing for our intro. Don't worry about it. Another agent expert interview. We had so much fun with the other ones that we've done, so we're sprinkling these in, a couple of them before the end of the year, and then I'm sure you may or may not see a couple in 2026 as well. So Cole, take it away.
Yeah, guys, as Austin said, another episode of the Agent Expert series. Today we have Sam Jensen joining us. She joins us from Williams Lake. I believe that's where you actually live, and I apologize if I'm
That is where I
mistaken
live.
there.
Yep.
So honestly, Sam, before we get into any of this, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am living in Williams Lake, BC, which is about 5.5, 6 hours north of Vancouver. I've lived up here for about 10 years now. I've been in the industry for just a little over 10 years as well. Just a little over 9 years licensed, heading into my 10th year in 2026. I have my real estate license as well as my managing broker's license, currently in the associate broker position. And I primarily focus on residential real estate up here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Austin. Sorry.
Sweet. Yeah, that's quite the experience. So, I mean, even just over the last 10 years, what are some things that kind of stick out that have changed in the industry since you started?
Yeah, of course. So I guess the change in not being able to do limited dual agency, that was a really big change for us back in 2018. And then just pretty much everything they throw at us every year and having to deal with that with keeping my agents updated and myself and just staying on top of it.
Bi-weekly new form, we call it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so funny. Glad everybody else feels that too. So talk a little bit about Sam kind of first day in the business. What
Okay.
is the advice that you're giving to yourself if you're just getting the business on the first day? And then maybe talk a little bit about your experience as a new agent as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say for any agent that's kind of getting right into the industry, I would say, research who maybe, some of the top producers are in your area, even other areas, kind of figure out, what they're doing to obtain business, how they're, building themselves up on social media and whatnot, and kind of find a fit, whether it's joining a team to try to learn that way or finding a good brokerage that's going to be able to support you in those first couple of years. Because as we all know, those are the most important years to kind of establish yourself in the industry. And I would say, yeah, during the beginning, like definitely build up systems. Those systems are going to be able to support you, whether you're a year into it or 10 years into it, like I am. And you can kind of help yourself grow from there because if you don't establish those right from the start, then trying to figure things out as you go. And when you do get busier, it can be a little bit challenging. And then you're trying to play a little bit of catch up as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When you talk about systems, what exactly do you mean by that?
So I think most of them have to do with organization. So calendar, staying on top of time blocking, being able to organize your day so that you can maximize what you get out of it, whether it's prospecting, time for yourself, time for, building stuff on social media. I think that's such a huge aspect of the industry right now as well, where, gone are the days where you throw out a newspaper ad or, just throw a listing on MLS. There's so much more to it. And people don't realize how much time that actually takes to be able to come up with these videos, meet with videographers and whatnot, and to get that all out there onto all the different platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, social media has become so big now, and it's not everybody's favorite way to market, but maybe you can speak a little bit to how you've leveraged social media and if you're willing to share maybe some things that you're hoping to do in the future with social media.
With social media, yeah, I think that with social media, it is a really good way to kind of get to know the agent. A lot of the times, a lot of my clients will come to me and they'll, want to work with me because they feel like they've already gotten to know me based on what I'm posting on there. So what I like to do is not just post, the typical just listed, just sold, I'll put more on there. I post a lot about my dog. I love her. And I feel like a lot of people get to know me through that up here and just to kind of see, what I do in my free time when I'm not, selling. Um, and then just posting a lot of video content just from what, everybody looks at these days. I find that videos get the most attention versus just like a standard post. Although carousels have been doing really well as well on Instagram, I've noticed too. But really just trying to build and post more than just, very simple content so that people feel like they're getting something out of it. Otherwise, I find that people start to unfollow or they lose interest in following your page because they don't feel like they're getting anything out of it. So I think trying to stay on top and teaching people something, giving them something they can take away is huge.
You're talking about social media, and I think one question that always comes to mind is like, how did you learn about social media and all these tips and tricks? Was it just trial and error? How do you research all this to make sure you're getting all of the up to date information to be the best at it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think a lot of it was trial and error. A lot of it was, as I'm sure it is for everybody, getting in front of the camera at first is pretty intimidating. You film a video and you end up filming it like 100 times and you're like, I still don't like it. Like, I can't post this. And eventually I find that you kind of just get over that fear. Like a lot of the videos that I post these days, it'll be like a one take, maybe two take kind of situation because I want it to feel authentic too. I don't want it to feel like I'm sitting there, reading off of the script or that it's not genuine. People want to see the authenticity. They want to see that you're human and know that you're not perfect. So that was one thing that my prof back in university taught us. He said, if you're always aiming to put out like perfect content, perfect, information, whether it's for like a listing brochure, like it's never going to be perfect to you potentially. So at that point, you're never going to put out as much as you potentially could if you just put out something that you're pretty happy with. And at the end of the day, like the public, they're not going to notice if you slip up on something or, like to them, it just matters to see your face and to see your branding out there.
Yeah, I think you often compare yourself to like, what that perfect is, but what I think a lot about
Hmm.
is people don't know exactly what you're supposed to say. So again, if you miss something or whatever, it's not like somebody's sitting there looking at your reel being like, oh, well, they used that transition or like this was a little
Yeah.
bit long. They're not going through with a fine tooth comb judging you. They're just, absorbing and taking in whatever you're posting and putting out there. But I think that's a really interesting way of,
Yeah,
of looking at it for sure.
exactly. We are our most harsh critic
100%,
at the end of it,
100%. And I
right?
think
Yeah.
what you said that stood out to me the most is you still try to be real about what's happening in your life beyond business because that's not the only thing happening in your life. And more often than
Hmm.
not, people connect more with you having a dog or with you going camping, for example, or you doing things that everyday people enjoy as well. And they're more likely to be like, hey, she's a real person. She's not somebody
Hmm.
that spends 100 hours in her office every week. She actually has a life outside of that. So
Exactly. And I find that's a big thing too, is people can be very intimidated by, realtors or people that are, in the public eye. It doesn't necessarily have to be a realtor, it could be a lawyer, whoever. And when you put yourself out there as like this authentic person, it makes you more approachable as well, right?
100%. I
Yeah.
love that
Speaking of
there's
dogs,
a dog in the background there.
That's getting
Also
edited
gonna feel
out.
bad about that, but
that's
that's
why I
okay.
came to the office for this because I was like, if I do this at home, like my dog, she's a Vizsla. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys know about that breed, but they're nicknamed Velcro Vizslas. So she
Okay.
literally would be like she sits on my shoulder like a cat or a bird. Like it's a lot. It can be a lot. So she would be taking over the podcast.
That's getting edited out, I think.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe next time we'll have her as a special
Next
guest. But
time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
My
that's
goodness.
hilarious.
I
That's
have
okay.
I have the door closed. My dog has figured out how to get through our baby gate.
I
So
love it.
she
Yeah.
finds out when I'm downstairs and I'm home, and she's like, I'll just come myself. Not
Yeah.
quite. Here, I think I have basically my cell that I record in. Anyway.
That's hilarious.
Yikes. What was your number one way of like, I guess, keeping in contact with clients? And I guess you could also talk about like building your business and leads under this as
Hmm.
well. Were you using social media for that? Were you using more of your kind of traditional email, phone call, follow up? Like, what did that look like for you building your business?
Mhm. So I think where a lot of that differentiates maybe for the market that I'm in versus your market is I live in a very small town. So there's realistically only about 12,000 people right in the main kind of city center. And then we have, other little communities that surround us. So maybe we're about like 30,000 total, but about 12,000 in the main area. So a lot of my clients, my sphere, I see everywhere on a
Right.
daily basis. So if I'm not, actively texting them or seeing them on social media, I'm going to bump into them in the grocery store, on the street. We'll drive by, we'll wave at each other. I have a very like noticeable, prominent car as well.
That
So
helps.
people see me everywhere. They
Branding.
wave at me. I feel like, kind of like the mayor of Williams Lake, just waving as I see people driving by. And you just get to know people that way. And I find that that's like a huge thing, that like human connection. But I would say for me, the biggest thing would be social media other than that. And then of course, texting, a little bit of email, but not as much for the other traditional kind of forms of contact.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about you outside the business. So in terms of like what things you like to do on a daily basis that do help you with your business, but are things that you've found that are you can't go without. And that might be exercise, that might be whatever that might be, but I'm just curious, what are some things that you found to be really important to help you stay consistent in the business?
hmm Yeah, I would say definitely like scheduling time for myself. So, one thing that I do every day is I schedule kind of lunchtime hours. So, it'll be, I'd say, anywhere from about 11 to 2 o'clock, kind of ranging about 2 hours. I try to give myself every day. And I'll take my dog, I'll throw her in the car, and we'll go somewhere on like a little adventure, go for a hike, go out kind of into the middle of nowhere where, there's not necessarily anybody there, where we can just kind of catch our breath, explore a little bit of the wilderness, and I can kind of disconnect from my phone and kind of have some time for myself. And I find that has been a really big game changer to kind of clear my head and, you know, focus and refocus back into things so that when I do get back into service, I can, focus on work.
That's kind of nice, getting out of service so
Yeah.
you don't even have that distraction of work. It's not even
No,
available to you. I like
right?
that. That's good.
So,
That's a new one, Austin. We haven't heard
Mhm.
that one yet. So
sounds amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, you got to
right.
get the caribou experience today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's another one for you. What's one mistake that you see other business owners make? And it doesn't have to be in real estate, it can be in anything, but what's something that you've noticed others do that maybe is a common mistake? Maybe it's not a common mistake, but let's hear your take on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say for that, the biggest thing is treating like not just, let's say, real estate like you said, but in general, like treating people like a transaction versus treating it as like a relationship and like something where you want to build off of that with your clients to, turn them into like a friend into your sphere and whatnot. Like a lot of people will just be like, okay, I'm going to sell this house, I'm going to get this commission check, whatever, and move on. But it's deeper than that, because when you build like that deeper level of trust with your clients, you essentially have those clients for life. You have their referrals, and you really build strong relationships that way. So I feel like a lot of people make the mistake of just treating it as one transaction instead of thinking of it long term.
That's awesome. And I imagine, sorry, correct me if I'm wrong here. I imagine referrals are extremely powerful in your community, given the size of the community.
hmm
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can imagine that would be a super powerful thing for you in that community.
It would be
Yeah.
definitely. Reputation is everything up here. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess especially when everybody knows everybody. If everybody knows you
Everybody
as
knows
like
everyone.
somebody that does
Yeah.
a bang
There's
up job.
only
Yeah.
about 30 of us up here for realtors.
Okay.
So people know the good ones. People know which ones to, maybe be
Well,
cautious of.
well, that's probably interesting too, because you're probably seeing a lot of overlap in your day to day when you are working with people. Like,
hmm
it's probably of 30 agents, probably three or four of them are doing 90% of the business, probably, right? Dang, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Pretty powerful.
What are some of the habits? And you talked about like time blocking as well, which I think is a really powerful tool. A lot of new agents, I think they have too many options, and that leads them to doing nothing. Uh,
Mhm.
what are some of the tools and habits that you've implemented? And I think this is also overlap from like the life thing into the business thing. What are
Mhm.
what are some things that you are doing to remain consistent in your business and what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the main things to stay consistent for me, like especially from when I first started, to kind of get myself going, keep myself motivated, because the thing with real estate, as you guys know, is you get what you put into it. So if you're not showing up, if you're not putting the effort in, then you're probably not going to be busy, and you're probably not going to, sell as many houses, have as many clients and whatnot. So for me, I think the biggest thing was I would show up every day to the office, and whether or not I had appointments, I'd be there from 9 to 5, trying to figure out, what I should do with my day, talking with other agents, seeing what kind of listings they have coming up, researching the market, prospecting, building videos, social media posts, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that was a big thing for me to kind of get myself going the first couple of years, was just to show up and be consistent, essentially. Because a lot of the time you hear people will say like, "Oh, I'm just going to get into it, part time and kind of dip my toes. And it's like, you just have to jump into it and commit essentially. And I would just, ensure that I really made myself like available for a lot of clients. So, you know, what my days look like now were totally different when I first started. I'd be like, oh yeah, you want to look at this house at this time, this day? Like, yep, I'll be there. It doesn't matter. Like, I'll drop everything and it's going to happen. So I think that's the biggest thing is just jumping into it full time and really committing and being consistent with showing up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think consistency is probably one of the biggest things, and it's hard because you could show up for 1 week and it feels like you're not really moving the needle. You're not, maybe you didn't find a new client, but now I imagine looking back on that time, you're really grateful for that time, especially that you were willing to put in that time and it's
Mhm.
gotten you to where you are now.
Absolutely. Even with social media, like they always say, like if you're, let's say posting videos and you're not seeing, any sort of results from it, like you're obviously not doing it long enough. Like posting videos for a week, a month, even a year sometimes isn't enough. Like you got to give it more time in order for to see those results.
That is why I have that on my
Yep.
wall. It
Yep.
says volume
Yep.
negates luck. Do a
Hmm.
lot and do it for long enough where, it becomes unreasonable that you will not succeed.
Exactly.
Yeah, very well said. That's why I keep it there. So I
I
can,
love it.
so I can talk about it every
Yeah.
podcast, right, Cole?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the first time you've actually directly referenced it, but that's okay.
Now that the recording room is set up properly, I gotta point things out.
You got to
Yeah.
point it out. Yeah.
What about like podcast and like personal business development? I think being an entrepreneur and starting a business takes a certain kind of crazy, and I mean that in a good way.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe that's a great question, like why real estate for you, but also what are the things that you've done to really lean into excellence and pursuing being an entrepreneur and a business owner?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I think I would have fallen into it one way or another. Was it what I directly set out to do, going out of school? Not necessarily. Graduating high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I went into the marketing management program at BCIT, and that was a 2-year program. I took that. The second year, you could kind of specialize in like some sort of industry, whether it was like tourism, communications, entrepreneurship, or real estate. I decided to take the real estate one and just kind of see, what happens or what if I enjoy even doing that. Side of things. And going through the program, meeting a lot of industry leaders, down in the lower mainland, it kind of really made me think that that might be the route that I want to take. So before I moved up here, I was still living in Vancouver. I ended up working for a developer in pre-sales. And that kind of really got me interested in maybe getting my license. So I ended up taking my licensing course and, obviously passing that, getting licensed. And then I decided to move up here with my now husband and pursue the resale side of things. And yeah, that kind of got me into that. But I think even before that, like my parents have always flipped properties throughout my childhood. So every couple of years they would buy, sell, invest in different properties. And I was always interested in that. I always loved going to like look at properties with them, see what we could do with the property, see, what they purchased the property for versus what they ended up selling the property for. So I think just would have been inevitable that it would have happened anyways for me to start doing that myself.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. So that's really
Yeah. Well,
cool.
there you go.
That's awesome. We'll get to this question in a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more first, and I'll give this to you now because you probably already read it. So, what's one question that you're going to leave for the next guest on the show? So maybe think about that while we're
Okay.
still going
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Let's answer Austin's question a little bit more, like in terms of getting into real estate. I mean, you talked about how it happened, but was there any inkling before that, like in high school or anything like that? Like, was there any point where you thought maybe you'd go into that?
Not really,
No?
no. I really had no idea what to do. My parents I'm Polish and,
Right.
with that background, they were like, "You have to be a lawyer or a doctor or something." And I'm like, I can't see myself being either of those." And I'm like, "I don't know what I want to do." Like I've always loved being around people and talking and, I knew I would be in some sort of industry where I would be surrounded by people. And that's why I was kind of thinking a marketing management program at BCIT because I'm like, at least that way, whether I get into communications or tourism, who knows, I would still be kind of in an industry where I'm surrounded by people every day and doing something social media related.
Okay. I'm a little bit curious about you're kind of doing two things you said. So you're a realtor, of course, but you're also
Hmm.
a managing broker.
Hmm.
So how does that work together? I mean, Austin probably already knows the answer to this, so this is more for my curiosity, but
Yeah.
how did those things come together?
Yeah. So it has shifted a little bit for me over the last month just because I'm an associate broker now with the new company that I'm with. But when you're a managing broker, so when you're a realtor, obviously you have to be a part of an office, and that office has to have a manager, which has its own, they have their own license, which is the managing broker's license. And that person's job is essentially to kind of help oversee all of the licensees and compliance. So with my previous position, I was one of three brokers. So each of us kind of had our own, pieces of that puzzle to undertake. But it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of liability that you're taking on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot.
So how did you get into doing that? Because I mean, maybe you didn't necessarily want to do the brokering side initially. Was it because maybe there's not a lot of people where you live that were doing it? Like, what really drove you to do that?
Yeah, I think for me, the drive was I've always been like ambitious to kind of just go for it and get as much education as I can for whatever industry I'm in. And I figured with the broker's course, you have to take it, or I should say that you don't have to take it. You can only take it after a certain amount of years of being in the industry. So I figured I would take it as not necessarily as soon as I could, but early on in my career, so that while everything was still fresh from the actual licensing course, I could apply that and still have like my studying methods in mind and whatnot to take it. So I don't know what the stat is on managing brokers, but I would want to say that I'm probably one of the youngest
Okay,
brokers
cool,
that I've ever met. I don't think I've ever met a younger broker than myself.
awesome. That's incredible.
So yeah, it was pretty funny. Like when I went to go take the exam, they're like, "Oh, you must be here to take your licensing exam," and I'm like, "Actually, I'm here for the broker's exam." And
No,
they're like,
that's old news.
"Are you sure? Are you sure?"
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
They couldn't even
yeah.
believe it. That's so
They
funny.
couldn't even grasp it. It was pretty funny. Yeah, I got it. I think it would have been 2019 when I passed. I would have been 24 at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get sorry, Austin.
Yeah.
Let's get
Which
to that.
Austin, I'm sure you're like, what 24-year-old would want to take that on? That's nuts.
Well, and especially too, because one of the things that we
Yeah.
we chatted about with being like 30 agents in kind of in your marketplace or in your area, like what is I'd be curious, like what is I don't want to say the age because that sounds bad, but like what is the years experience better
Hmm.
of like the average realtor in your area? Like what is the turnover? Is it
Yeah.
like two,
What's the
4 years?
demographic?
Yeah.
I would say, experience wise, it ranges anywhere from like a year for some people to we have one agent, which is actually one of my previous managing brokers. It's been in the industry for like 55 years. So it really ranges. And then
And
everywhere kind of in between.
and do you have agents in your area that have come from other places mainly? Are they typically homegrown? Like what would you say is
Uh,
the demographic?
I would say it's a mix. I
Yeah.
would
Okay.
say about 80 to 85% of them are going to be local,
Okay.
born and
Cool.
raised. Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty neat. Like coming into the community, it was a little bit intimidating, thinking like, am I going to be able to establish myself? Like, how is that going to work? Like, why would somebody choose to work with me over somebody that they already know that lives in the area or is from the area? I'm going to be like an outsider. So that was a huge mental hurdle for me to get over.
Yeah.
But eventually, like once you start meeting everybody, it's like it's such a welcoming community. So definitely not a concern anymore.
Awesome. Let me ask you this, if you're okay to talk to this, because I know that
Yeah.
you recently switched brokerages, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
Beat me to
Can
the
you tell us a
question,
little?
buddy.
What's that?
Beat me to the question.
Yeah, that let's talk about that a little bit. And I don't need
Yeah.
necessarily your whole motivation for why you did it, but I'd love to hear how that came about. What kind of things you're excited about now that you've made that transition? Like, let's hear more about that.
Yeah, of course. So of course, me moving up here and me getting my license, me joining the brokerage I was with previously, all kind of happened around that same timeline. So that was almost just over 9 years ago now. So I was with the same brokerage for 9 years, and it was kind of just where I was comfortable, what I knew. I didn't know any other office other than that. So for me, it was just coming to a point in my career where I'm like, if not now, then when? And I've always been intrigued by Real, looking at other agents that I know that have joined, just what the company has to offer. It was just something that was kind of starting to stand out to me. And I started to think, where do I see my business going in the next couple of years? Where do I see, myself going? What do I want my kind of day to day to look like? And what kind of systems do I want in place to kind of help grow my business? And that was a big proponent for me to make the change because
Amazing.
like I said, it's a small community. I absolutely adore the ladies at my old office. It was an all female brokerage,
Okay.
and
Wow.
a lot of them were my mentors, and I totally look up to them. But it was just a necessary step for me to kind of take myself to the next level.
Awesome. Is there other
Yeah.
agents in your area that are also a part of Real now or that have been previously?
There's one more agent that ended up leaving with me. So
Okay.
the two of us are the only ones in Williams Lake. We're actually the most northern agents from Real at the moment.
Okay, cool. That's a cool little
Yeah.
thing that you
Yeah.
can that you can say. That's awesome. Austin, I'm trying to remember what the last question was. So that, like, I asked you this before, Sam, about what's one question you'd leave for the next guest. I know one question we had recently was, what's your exit strategy, or what's your succession plan?
Mm,
Or with that is,
hmm
how do you know when it's time to hang it up, I guess?
Hang it up. Yeah. I think from my perspective, it would be once you start to lose your passion
Okay.
for what we do. I think a lot of it, like I said, you have to be motivated not necessarily by the transaction, but by the people.
Right.
And when you're kind of over that, I guess, I would say that would probably be the biggest time to maybe reconsider, what your business model looks like. Um, in terms of like exit strategy, I don't know if I'd ever want to really fully exit. At least
Okay.
I'm not at this age. Like
Yeah,
maybe
fair
once
enough.
I'm older and kind of, at that point. But I would say kind of the next steps for me personally might be to try to grow a small team
Cool.
eventually
Okay.
so that I can have, a bit of a different position within that team and maybe have a bit more time for myself and a bit more flexibility. But I would say that would kind of be, yeah, the biggest thing that I would kind of be thinking of, I guess. But in terms of exiting, like, yeah, I'm only 10 years into it. So I think I still have a long I'm hoping I still have a long career. I still love what I do. So
Good, good. Yeah, that's
yeah.
a tough question to answer at this point. I
Yeah.
understand we're not necessarily at an age where that's something we've really considered, so it's
Yeah.
tough to answer that.
Right.
But yeah,
But
it's
it's
good.
something to definitely think about, right? Like you want to
For
kind of
sure.
know, how you're setting yourself up. And I think again, that was a big thing for me with the change was just knowing that I can work, fully virtually, have a physical office if I choose to, but to have that kind of as an option to have some better systems in place.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Austin and I obviously both know some realtors that are with Real. I mean, we had
Mhm.
one on this series that actually joined just after we just after we interviewed him, and
Yeah.
we've had another one on here that wasn't actually part of this series technically, but he's been with Real for a while, so we're
Mhm.
familiar. Austin probably is more than I am, but anyways, congratulations on joining. I know that's obviously a big
Thank
decision
you.
for you. Like you said, it was. I'm probably pretty difficult to leave some of your mentors, and I know you still see them in the community and stay in touch, but it's still a big decision to make. So
It
congratulations
was
on doing that.
definitely a big decision. Big decision, not an easy one. It was definitely not something where I was like, "Oh, let me just go check this out and see how it goes."
Right.
Especially when I'm like I said, I was leaving a very comfortable place that I was in for so long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and
Um,
I think if I can add to that, like I think one of the questions that people have with cloud brokerages, if I had to guess, is like obviously not having that brick and mortar, and
Mhm.
especially if you have questions like who is your managing broker? Are they down the highway or down the hall? And I think that can be scary. But like
Mhm.
for yourself, kind of having the managing broker license and kind of having I would say definitely a higher level of knowledge than your average agent based off of the additional training and certifications that you've gotten. You're
Mhm.
probably not as worried about like, I got to ask my managing broker somebody. Oh, wait, no, I can ask myself that same question to answer that question. So like, I think for somebody like yourself, I think a cloud brokerage, one of the big hurdles or one of the big objections, I think you kind of solve it for yourself. So it makes more sense for sure.
Yeah, and, for me as well, like, thinking, like, it would definitely not be something I would consider if I was a new agent. I think for a new agent, going to, a brick and mortar is exactly where they should start because I feel like if they go directly into like they're just going to get lost in everything and they don't have that support to kind of help them succeed.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
We have one more question here. I'll throw this at you, and then we'll get your
Okay.
question for the next guest.
I've
Um,
got it locked in. So
yeah, okay, perfect. What's one moment or event in your career that taught you a valuable lesson, or maybe changed your trajectory within the business? And what was the lesson that you learned?
gosh, that's a good question. I was actually when you sent me those, I was thinking about that one, and I don't know if there was any specific moment in time,
Okay,
but I think just maybe just earlier on in my career, I would say maybe just being able to set boundaries,
good. Okay,
boundaries with like clients, like I was saying earlier, when I was getting into the industry at first, I was just making myself super available. I would take calls, at all hours of the day and night. I would go show places, maybe not take on, all the business that I would take on more business than what I would want to normally take on now. And yeah, I think I just kind of stretched myself thin and I didn't have the confidence to maybe set those boundaries. So I think that was a big thing for me is being able to say, no, I'm going to be available between these hours. I don't work Sundays or whatnot. And just being clear and setting those expectations ahead of time.
yeah, I think that's incredible, and I think for a lot of people, that is the way that they learn that lesson is by learning the hard way. Quite frankly, they
Hmm.
do it and they go, okay, maybe this isn't really what I want, and I understand why. In real estate especially, you're like, you know what, I just want every opportunity I can possibly get, and you will learn by taking those opportunities, but at the end of the day, like, you have a partner and you have a life, you want to spend time with them too and be available for them. So I totally understand
Exactly.
that.
You'd think so, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Ah,
Okay, let's hear your question, and it's going to be for
yeah.
the next person, so go ahead.
Okay. So my question is, what is one surprising thing about being a real estate agent that nobody talks about?
Okay. One surprising thing. Austin, do you want to answer that question? I'm curious what your take is on that.
No, well, okay, this sounds funny, but what jumps to mind? I saw like one of the local media posts. Let me pull it up. But basically, they were like the number one desired job in Canada is a real estate agent. Did you see this?
I just saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to find the exact wording for it.
Who are they asking this question to?
That's what
Basically,
I'm wondering as well.
it was broken down by country. Let me find this photo. I know this is great content. Real es- Real estate agent ranks as Canadians' number one dream job.
Wow. So are we talking high school students here that they're asking, or?
I don't know. I would love
That's
to.
what
I would
I'm
love to see the
curious.
sample size. The reason I find it funny, like it is my dream job. I know that we do all in
Yeah.
this on this podcast do something real estate related. I think a lot of people think it's really easy. It's
Yes.
not.
I think
It's
it gets,
not.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's definitely misunderstood. And I think that people, unfortunately, and I don't feel this way at all, think you're wildly overpaid and you don't do a lot of work, which I think is the complete opposite. I think you're compensated fairly for the amount of work that you have to do. And anybody that wants to try is more than welcome to. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. No.
Yep.
100%.
Absolutely.
I feel like especially in the last like let's say 5-10 years, there's been a lot of and Ryan Serhant's great.
Hmm.
Love him. He's awesome. There's been a lot of like social media and content around and reality TV around real estate agents, and people are like,
Yes.
"Wow, that looks fun." That
Right.
is like a very different experience
Right.
selling, $60 million penthouses in New York versus, again, it's just not what you expect. So
Yeah.
that would be my surprise, and it's just because I saw that like maybe half an hour before we came on. What about Sam? Well, what's the surprise for
Yeah.
you?
I would say probably pretty similar to that. Like, I just think people have no idea what we're up against half the time. It can be where we're smiling on social media, being like, I'm having such an awesome day. I just did the show. But they don't know in the background you're trying to keep a deal together. Something, there's a leak that just happened in one of your listings, or you're dealing with a, tenant, or who knows what the situation is. And people just don't understand that at all. And I feel like one of the biggest problems with that is the actual like licensing course. It doesn't prepare you at all.
Mhm.
So people take this course and they're like, okay, like how hard can it be? You know? And then you actually get into it and you're like, wow, like that is not what I expected at all.
I
Yeah,
love that.
what do you mean clients don't just get fed to me? What do you mean I don't
Right?
just get listings?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
well, it's funny. That's what I think about too when you're talking about like social media. People think that like, oh, I'm just gonna post like a just listed on social media. People are gonna be like, oh, you just listed another place. When can you come over and list my house? That has never happened
Right.
ever, ever.
Never,
I saw a
never.
funny
Yeah.
video today about that. It's like every realtor thinks that when they list a just sold sign that everyone's like, "Oh my god, did you see their post that they just sold a place? We have to use them when we sell our place." It's like that's not the expectation. I just think that's funny,
No.
but I was going to say, Sam, and it's not even managing just the clients. It's also there's a market that's happening too. That there's those external factors that you're dealing with. And I mean, in our area, we're dealing with high inventory rates and we're dealing with prices slowly declining. Like that's one aspect of it. And then you're also dealing with client expectations. And like you said, all these other things that come up. So as I said already, if you want to try it, please be my guest. Try it out. See if it is truly your dream job afterwards. And
Right.
honestly, if it is, as Austin said, you'll succeed because you'll stick with it long enough that you won't have
That's
the
just
option
it.
but to fail. So yeah. Anything else, Austin, before we wrap it up here?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me pretty much everywhere. On Instagram, I'm at Sam Sold It. On Facebook, I'm at Selling Williams Lake. Fun little play on like selling sunset.
Nice.
And then just my website, samjensenwl.com.
Amazing. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Sam, for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you guys for having me. This was awesome. And look forward to chatting with you guys in the future.
Absolutely.
Awesome.